The red and white banner hung limply in the humid afternoon air, a constant reminder of occupation and compliance. My great-grandfather would climb the wooden ladder each evening, his weathered hands checking the knots with meticulous care, tugging the rope to ensure the Japanese flag remained taut against the pole. It was a ritual born not of patriotism, but of survival, a daily reaffirmation that his family understood the rules of their new world. The village had changed overnight, or so it seemed to the 9 people crowded into the modest house. What had once been their quiet corner of the countryside became something else entirely when the soldiers arrived. A place where authority came from the barrel of a gun, where compliance was written in fear, and where a fallen flag could mean the difference between life and death. Great-grandfather took that responsibility with a solemnity that bordered on obsession. Every sunset found him outside, checking, adjusting, ensuring that the symbol of their surrender remained fixed to the pole like a prayer to a merciless God. My grandmother, still a child then, remembered watching him from the window. She could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his lips moved silently as he worked, as though he were negotiating with fate itself. The flag had to remain perfect. It was the only negotiation available to them. The house itself seemed to hold its breath during those days. My grandmother, his mother, moved through the rooms with the careful quietness of someone perpetually afraid of disturbing the peace. The younger children learned to play without noise, to laugh without volume, to exist as unobtrusively as possible. They had become ghosts in their own home, and my great-grandfather had become the guardian of a symbolic relationship with their occupiers, man maintaining a fragile boundary between normalcy and catastrophe. Food was scarce, rationed, stretched across too many mouths, and never quite enough. Rice was measured out with the care of precious metal, each grain accounted for. Hunger had become as much a part of daily life as the sound of boots on village roads, or the ever-present anxiety that settled in the chest like fog. The family existed in a state of perpetual deprivation, sustained by routine and the kind of resignation that comes from having no choice in the matter. It was on an ordinary day that the dog appeared. The creature came from nowhere, skeletal and matted, its ribs visible beneath patchy fur. It wandered into their yard with the tentative hope of the truly desperate, moving slowly as though each step required negotiation with its own body. The animal's eyes were intelligent but haunted, reflecting a hunger that matched the family's own. It stood at a distance, watching, waiting for either kindness or cruelty, the only 2 responses it likely knew. My great-grandfather stood in the doorway, studying the stray. In that moment, something shifted in him. Perhaps it was the recognition of kinship in another creature trapped by circumstance, struggling against the weight of things beyond its control. Perhaps it was simply that the dog is suffering, spoke to something in him that could remain unmoved, even in those dark times. He went inside and returned with rice. Not much, a small handful scooped from their meager supply, but enough to mean something. His wife watched from the window, understanding immediately what this act of feeding an extra mouth meant. It meant less for their children. It meant further rationing, further tightening of belts already pulled tight. But she said nothing, recognizing perhaps that her husband needed to feed something other than despair. The dog ate cautiously, almost reverently, and then lay down in the yard as though it had found what it had been searching for. By evening, it had not left. By the next morning, it had become part of the household, another being under the roof, another mouth, but also something else, a presence that seemed to soften the edges of the fear that lived in those rooms. The weeks passed in the rhythm of occupation. The dog gained weight slowly. Its coat began to fill in, and its eyes lost some of their hunted quality. My grandmother played with it in the yard, her small hands learning what comfort felt like through the act of giving it to something else. The dog followed great-grandfather on his evening rounds, watching as he checked the flag, a silent companion to his nightly prayer of vigilance. Then came the night that would change everything. The soldiers arrived well past dark, their voices loud and unguarded, their movements clumsy with alcohol. There were 3 of them, and they had come with the casual authority of men who had decided what they wanted and assumed compliance was guaranteed. They pushed into the house without ceremony, demanding in harsh voices and broken language. They were looking for women. What happened next unfolded with the terrible speed of a nightmare. Great-grandfather stepped forward immediately, his body moving to block their path deeper into the house, his voice steady despite the terror that must have been screaming through his veins. He told them there were no women here, only children, only himself. He lied with the desperation of a man who had perhaps one chance to save his family from an unspeakable fate. The soldiers didn't believe him, or perhaps they simply didn't care. One of them pushed him down hard, and my great-grandfather fell to the floor. He felt the rage boiling in them, the sense of entitlement that came from occupying a land and believing that everything in it belonged to them. One soldier drew his bayonet, and in that split second, the violence became inevitable. But in that moment, something else became inevitable too. The dog moved without hesitation or calculation, driven by something deeper than reason or self-preservation. It launched itself between the soldier and my great-grandfather, placing its body where the blade was already falling. The animal made a sound, not quite a yelp, not quite a howl, and then it was done. The dog collapsed, and my great-grandfather was looking down at the creature that had been fed rice from a ration supply, that had lain in the yard while he checked the flag that had become part of something precious, in a time when precious things were being systematically taken away. The soldiers froze. In that moment, something shifted in their minds, a superstition surfacing through the alcohol and the violence. In Japanese folklore, dogs were inugami, spiritual creatures, entities that carried power and curse, that existed partially in worlds the living couldn't fully access. A dog that had died protecting a man, that had thrown itself in front of a blade, such a creature was not simply an animal. It was something that could reach beyond death. It could bring punishment to those who had killed it. The soldiers looked at the dead dog, then at my great-grandfather, then at each other. Without another word, they left. The bravado drained from them, replaced by something that looked uncomfortably like fear. The next day brought a different kind of knock on the door. The same soldiers returned, but transformed. They carried bags of rice offerings left at the threshold like tributes to an angry god. They worked quickly, nervously, placing the bags where the dead dog had lain. Speaking in low voices, their movements hurried and reverent. They were appeasing the spirit they believed inhabited that place now, a dog that had sacrificed itself, and could therefore claim supernatural weight in their worldview. My great-grandfather accepted the rice without speaking much, understanding the strange mercy that superstition had granted his family. The flags continued to hang from the pole, checked each evening with the same meticulous care. But now there was rice, brought by soldiers who believed themselves cursed, left as offerings to appease a creature that had stepped between death and those it loved. The occupation would eventually end, as all occupations do. The soldiers would leave. But my grandmother never forgot the stray dog that had chosen to stay, that had been fed from a rationed supply despite the hunger. In 9 mouths they had grown old in their yard, under the watchful eye of a flag that had to remain perfect. She never forgot that sometimes the smallest act of kindness in the darkest times echoes forward in ways we never anticipate. She never forgot that a creature with nothing to lose had given everything, and that in doing so, had changed the trajectory of her family's survival. The dog's name is lost to time now, buried somewhere in the decades between then and now. But its loyalty, its sacrifice, its inexplicable choice to place itself between a raised bayonet and the man who had offered it rice, that remained fixed in memory, as surely as the flag remained fixed to the pole, a testament to what it means to love something enough to die protecting it, and to what it means to be loved in return.